What's up, guys? Welcome back. Now, first of all, I want to say thank you all very much for a great 2018 on YouTube. It was the best year I've ever had on YouTube in terms of views for the channel and for the uploads. The amount of views I had per upload were the highest I've ever had. So thank you all so much for that. And 2019 is going to be another big year. And we're going to continue on with what's going on in the latest with Nintendo and the gaming industry on this channel. And as you saw last year, from the midpoint in 2018 all the way to the end of the year, largely this channel has been focused on the next generation of Nintendo consoles with the Switch Pro, and this continues on today with this video we're doing now with the Switch Pro as well. New hardware from Nintendo, something I really like talking about, and it looks like we're going to be continuing to be talking about it until they do reveal this console very soon, hopefully. And if you did follow my channel last year with all the Switch Pro related content, I did in fact create a playlist for all the Switch Pro related videos that you can find on the front page of my channel. And you'll see the chronological order of how things played out last year, with first of all the job listings with all the things they're working on behind the scenes for Nintendo and their hardware. A lot of things pointing to a new system coming soon in 2019 from those job listings. Proof that Nintendo has been working on a custom SoC. Proof that they're working with PCI Express compatible chips and multi-threading and even spatial audio in a future yet to be revealed console. Not only that, but we had the report from the Wall Street Journal themselves that they're going to be releasing a new version of the Switch in 2019. And of course, we had the big rumor from Review Tech USA with all the information for the specs and whatnot for what we could expect from a more powerful Nintendo Switch in 2019. But not only that, but a lot of the hints that Nintendo themselves has been giving in the various investors meetings, comments from their president, changes in the way they do business, a lot of those things point to them releasing this new console in 2019. So here we go again, and we're talking about it here today. So every January, these quote-unquote expert analysts talk about what they predicted last year and what they predict this year and what they got right and what they got wrong from those predictions. And various industry analysts weighed in on the topic of what to expect from the next generation of hardware and from Nintendo in 2019. These guys include Sir Toto and Michael Pachter, various guys that you know in the industry that talk about these things. But the main person I'm going to be referring to in this video is Sir Toto, because basically all his predictions from 2017 came out to be true. So let's go over what he talked about here. He said that last year he predicted 2018 will be another successful year for Nintendo. He was correct about that. Obviously, Nintendo is successful again. The Switch hasn't been a failure in its second year. Granted, it may have difficulty reaching that 20 million mark, but even if it gets, 17, 18 million, it's still a very successful year. So he was right about that. He also said that Microsoft will continue to struggle and next-gen rumors will emerge. That was correct. And he said that VR and AR won't break through, and that was also correct. He also brought out that a lot of sequels and remasters will come out again, and that was correct. And that mobile will see further consolidation, which was also correct. So here's what he says about 2019 that he predicts. He says that Switch Pro and Lite versions. So he talks about Switch Pro and Switch Lite versions of the console will be introduced in 2019. He says, well, the 2019 Switch Pro has already been reported to be in the development by the Wall Street Journal. That's interesting that he says that, because the Wall Street Journal never said it was a Switch Pro, but it did talk about possibly having an upgrade. So obviously that would be a Switch Pro when you think about it. But he also goes on to say, he says, I also think Nintendo will offer a Switch Lite, or they will just keep the current version at a lower price to cover the lower end of the spectrum and offset sinking 3DS sales. And then he talks about third-party support on the Switch. He says, in tandem with hardware revisions and an increasing install base, I am expecting a lot more games from third-party developers in 2019, starting in spring. At least one new game from the mega franchises owned by EA, Activision, or Take-Two will launch on Switch. So that's all he said about Nintendo, but those were pretty big predictions there. And it was interesting that he said that the Switch Pro is already confirmed by the Wall Street Journal, and he's basically saying that the Switch Pro could become Nintendo's main type of console as far as what they're pushing, and then have the Switch Lite, or the current version of the Switch, become the lower priced model of it and effectively take the place of the 3DS, which I think is a great idea, because the 3DS obviously is on its way out, you all would agree. And Nintendo has mentioned that they are planning to replace the 3DS. And a lot of people think, well, it's a bad idea. How can they release another, dedicated handheld when they already have the Switch? So repurposing the current Nintendo Switch to a lower price and making that effectively replace the 3DS, while then releasing the more premium version of the Switch Pro, at a higher price, better specs, better screen, what have you, would make a lot of sense, and then would effectively create a family of Switch devices for the market to invest in and for consumers to buy, and of course bring more money to Nintendo. I think ultimately this is what Nintendo will do. Nintendo has talked about increasing the number of Switch consoles per household, and this would be one way to do it. And I know a lot of people were against the idea of selling the Switch without a dock, at least the current Switch, but they already are offering that option in Japan, where you can actually buy the Switch without the dock and just make your own, custom version of it with just the Switch console handheld itself and Joy-Cons. I could definitely see them doing that in the United States as well, offering more options to the consumer and lowering the price of it, maybe getting it to that very nice, attractive $199 price point, and then effectively replace the Nintendo 3DS line, because I think the 2DS XL starts at $199, the newest version of it, and this would actually be a very good replacement of it, because you got a Nintendo Switch that is substantially more powerful than the 3DS, like by 100 times. Who knows how many more times it's more powerful than the 3DS, but it's way more powerful than that console. And for $199, that would be a great deal for that tier of the lower end market that they're thinking of here, getting the Switch into a lot more households, more people, more kids, more in your household. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about how, hey, I'm playing my Switch and my kid took it away from me and took it to their room to play Smash Brothers or to play whatever. You hear these things talked about all the time. So they could have a Switch Pro or a premium version of the console that is more expensive, more powerful, and have that effectively replace the current Switch that is on the market, and then repurpose that current Switch to be a more affordable price for the mass market, down to $250 with a dock maybe, or $199 without the dock, and then sell a lot more of them with all the bells and whistles, increased specs, better screen, all that good stuff. Have that higher tier level for Nintendo fans to purchase if they want, and still have the console, of course, be called Switch overall, and have the total sales reflect that. Nintendo will probably be like, hey, this is the total sales of Switch, the Switch family, just like the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro. Sony encompasses all those sales together into one big pot, basically, of sales data. That could be one way Nintendo can make the Switch platform last for a very, very long time, and also replace effectively the 3DS line without having actually to introduce a brand new dedicated handheld that would actually cannibalize the current Switch system out there. So that makes perfect sense. I think he's onto something here with his prediction. I think that's a great idea, and in fact I kind of expect Nintendo to do that. But there's one thing we have to remember here, is that Nintendo is not Sony. Just because Sony required developers to put games on PS4 and PS4 Pro interchangeably does not mean Nintendo will do the same thing with Switch Pro. I want to make that very clear, and the reason why I say that is because you guys may not realize this, but the new Nintendo 3DS actually has over 50 games that are exclusive to that console, and a lot of those games are simply just eShop games that could actually run on the original 3DS, but they're not on that console. And I'll put the list on the screen of what those games are. But basically, a lot of those games are eShop games, simple games that could run on the original 3DS, but they're not on that console. They're only on the new Nintendo 3DS. Now, why is that? Well, that's the developer's choice, right? Nintendo could have said, hey, you got to put those games on the original 3DS. There's more of an install base of that console out there. You cannot just have those games on the new Nintendo 3DS, but yet they do. Also, there's over 30 Super Nintendo games on the new Nintendo 3DS exclusively that are not able to be played on the original 3DS hardware. Again, Nintendo did not require those games to be run on the original 3DS hardware, even though there's some talk that the games can't run on the original 3DS hardware as well as the new 3DS hardware, but Nintendo was requiring for that to happen, and they weren't able to get the games to work on the original 3DS hardware. Obviously, they may not have even put those games on the new Nintendo 3DS if they had that stipulation that they could not have those games run on the new Nintendo 3DS without having them work on the original 3DS. So I'm gonna put that out there. Nintendo could very well be releasing a Switch Pro that does in fact play exclusive games on it, like these AAA third-party ports that have been rumored for the console. Because Nintendo didn't put that stipulation on developers with the new Nintendo 3DS, so I kind of doubt they're going to do that with the Switch Pro as well. Certain AAA games that developers simply can't devote the time and resources to port to the original Switch will simply port it to the more powerful Switch, even if it's only marginally more powerful. I'm just putting it out there, guys, that is a very distinct possibility due to Nintendo's track record with these portable devices and what they have allowed developers to do and choose to put on their revisions of their hardware. So I thought this was very interesting information, guys. I wanted to share it with you. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Do you think that we're going to be getting a Switch Pro and a Switch Lite version of the console in 2019, or they can just release a Switch Pro by itself and have the original Switch just drop in price? Or do you think they'll keep the current Switch at $300 and just release a new, more powerful Switch at $400 and see where they go from there? Let me know what you think about all this. Thanks again for all your support in 2018, and I look forward to another great year in 2019. Alright, if you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you very soon in the next video. Have a great day.